Powered by the Inside the Birds podcast. Now, live from inside the Matt Black Kia Studios. This is Football at 4.
Football at 4 is powered by the Inside the Birds podcast, and it is brought to you by Philly Sports Trips. If you're a diehard Philly fan who's looking for some great Philly sports road trips, it's time to check out the full trip lineup at phillysportstrips.com. We just gave away a Philly sport trip. Our winner is going to Chicago to see the Eagles and the Bears whenever that game gets announced. Hopefully for him, it's a nice warm day in Chicago. I prefer a nice chilly day in Chicago. All right, Geoff Mosher's here. Let's talk a little football at 4. Eagles draft 2022 is in the books, Jeff, and it seems that they went in with 10 picks. They left with 5. And a lot of people really giving the Eagles high grades for those 5 picks so far. So just on the surface, the overview of going from 10 picks to 5, do you feel like they got a lot accomplished this weekend?
Well, I think in fairness, you have to probably count A.J. Brown's addition as the overall haul for the 3-day event, right? So in that regard, you can come out and say the Eagles got 3 first-round talents out of this draft: Jordan Davis, Nakobe Dean, and A.J. Brown. You can say that, and it's not that much of a reach. That's true. With Nakobe Dean, I'd say you got a top 40 talent, because even without the injuries, I don't know that he definitely would have been among the top 32, but top 40 is pretty darn good to get at 3rd round, so that's great too. You can also very much question how they would come out of a 3-day event and not for another year and not come out with a young corner or a young safety to build around. I think that's a fair criticism. We talk a lot on Inside the Birds about valuation, positional valuation. The Eagles are clearly a front-to-back type team. They build in the trenches. But we also sometimes say, at what point, when you take a second-round pick and you on a center, who has never played guard, by the way, we'll talk about that in a little bit, but on Jason Kelce's replacement, there were a lot of corners and safeties that went before them at 51. It would have been tough to trade up because they had already given away a lot of picks in the first round for Brown and Davis. But that's part of the discussion about how much you value the front end, to the point where do you equally or do you objectively look at back end players as vital? Forget it. We know you value trench players, but can you objectively look at back end players and ever say that those guys are the best player available on the board when you constantly default to linemen? It's fair.
Yeah, I mean, look, I was kind of disappointed that they took a center in the second round, and of course I got people tweeting nonstop, wow, Jason Kelce endorsed it. Well, Kelce himself should know that he was a 6th-round pick. To me, the value is simply not there for a guy who may or may not be good. We don't know, just because Jason Kelce seems to think that he resembles his style. Many players aren't good GMs. For a current player to sit here and say, hey, that's the guy, I don't think the value is there for a player who's just essentially a center.
Yeah, I think it's fair. I mean, I think you go back to last year's draft and say they took Landon Dickerson, who's a first-round talent, probably best player on the board, top 40 guy that you got there in the second round, and say, okay, but you again address that, and he's looks like he's going to be a good player. This isn't about missing on a position that you like and then passing on good players. It's about, at what point does your positional value interfere with your valuation and your analysis and evaluation of players who don't play in the trenches. So it would be one thing if we were talking about 1 year or 2 years. We are now going on 20 plus years of not drafting a corner or safety in the first round, and several years of just not really. I mean, Sidney Jones, I guess, was a second rounder in 2017. They just have not done it, and they keep telling you why, and they give you kind of examples of certain things, and I get it. But at some point you have to answer to why you don't replenish a very, very important part of your team.
Yeah, well, that said, I mean, all right, the first round they take Jordan Davis. Would you have preferred they went Hamilton in that spot, or was there a corner when they made the trade that you say, hey, or are you okay with taking Jordan Davis in a trade up there?
Yeah, see, it's to put a value judgment. I don't know. I'm okay with either guy. I think they're both guys. My thing is just take the best player on your board right now. I have a hard time. Again, this is where we get into it. They traded up 2 spots to get Jordan Davis. If they had sat there, they might have gotten Jordan Davis, or they might have lost him to the Ravens. But if they lost him to the Ravens, then they're getting Kyle Hamilton. Kyle Hamilton it fell because of testing, but people will tell you around the league his tape tells you he's a top 5, top 10 player. He's a great overall player, regardless of what the testing and the speed is. But clearly, I think the Eagles gave you the answer there by saying that even though they could have sat there and got one of those two, they wanted the defensive lineman. And that's fine. He may turn out to be a very good player, but I'm of the opinion that if they had sat there and the Ravens took Jordan Davis, I'm not convinced that they would have taken Kyle Hamilton there. I mean, every time they have the opportunity to take someone in that position, they don't do it. Although I was told, Mike, that if they had not traded for A.J. Brown going into the draft, they were looking at trying to get Jordan Davis first, and then at 18, possibly getting Trent McDuffie, the cornerback from Washington. But they do value a little more corner than safety. But I mean, I don't know if they'll ever take a safety in the first round with this regime.
Yeah. Well, before we get, they went. So Jordan Davis is interesting. So Geoff, try to explain if you can, if you buy into this. I mean, I've been reading a lot about Davis, and he's very polarized. I mean, some people really love this guy. Others, he doesn't play all that much. Why didn't he play all that much? Then there's others that say, well, you don't understand what he adds and how that's going to change Gannon's ability to do stuff, and that, that's going to really help out the secondary, that the secondary is now going to have a lot different look to it because of Jordan Davis. So why is the Davis pick the guy for them? Why was he the guy that they were willing to trade up for? What does he bring that changes John Gannon's defense?
So there's a couple of things. One, what he brings from an athletic standpoint, before we get to what he changes defense, is almost historic. Like, there's never been someone that big who has tested at that level. So you're getting yourself a unicorn of an athlete. And when you can get a unicorn, you get a unicorn. There's no doubt about it. Like, Kyle Hamilton's a great safety, but no one was saying that he's the most athletically gifted safety anybody has ever seen. Same thing with a lot of players in this draft. So you're getting a unicorn who and it's not just about getting a great athlete. Because he's such a great athlete at that size, Mike, he has the ability to play multiple positions on the defensive line, which is something Jonathan Gannon has wanted. He's wanted a guy since he got here who can stop like a mammoth sort of 2-gapping run stuffer, which you normally see with a 3-4 defense. Think like Haloti Ngata, right, in his heyday, or what you see for Vita Vea in Tampa. So they got that guy. But the thing is, he's so athletically gifted that his game translates to also being a Fletcher Cox-like player. He can get upfield. He has burst. He has speed. He can move. So he's almost like a Fletcher Cox or Aaron Donald type 3 technique defensive tackle in a nose tackle's body. So he gives you the ability to do both. And what they imagine he's going to be down the road once they get their hands on him is someone who can play beyond first and second down, someone who's going to impact the game on third down as a pass rusher. Is he going to get 10 to 12 sacks? No, but guess what? Fletcher Cox only has done that once in his career. Haloti Ngata has never had 10 sacks in his career. Vita Vea hasn't had 10 sacks. We know that interior linemen are held to a different sack standard. They're supposed to be pocket pushers, pocket collapsers, and they make the entire line around them better because of it. He ideally will do that. There should be no question about his ability to do that given the way he is as a player. But secondarily to that, Mike, when you put a guy, you remember last year, the Eagles came out, Jonathan Gannon's first 5 or 6 games, he played a lot of 2 deep safety coverages, right? Well, when you play that safety back, those 2 safeties back, you're asking your front 6 to stop the run. And the Eagles were god-awful at it. I mean, remember, everybody was running right up the middle on them left and right.
Yes.
All right. Some of that was due to the linebacker issue, but a lot of it was basically you're trying to play a style of defense and you don't have a mammoth run stuffer up front. Well, he gives you that now. You can play a safety deep when he's in there because he can stop the run. And if he's as good as they say he is, people are going to stop trying to run up the middle. They're going to want to run outside. That helps your linebackers because, as we saw, these linebackers are not big dudes. And Nakobe Dean's a guy that got a lot of medical history. You would rather have that your linebackers are playing sideline to sideline instead of in the A gaps. So that's a benefit to the linebackers. It's a benefit to have your safeties playing deep, which protects your other cornerback, who they don't even know who's going to be yet. And it from a bigger standpoint, you give up less explosive plays when you play safeties deep. So theoretically, a guy like Jordan Davis, when he's at his best, will impact your entire levels of your defense and your philosophy.
That was a good breakdown, yes. So Davis takes up so much attention that should allow them to show more exotic looks, have more guys in coverage, blitz less, not have to send so many guys to try to get to the quarter. They don't blitz all that much to begin with, but the necessity to have to send as many people because he takes so much. What do you think about Dean and his role? Because I feel like they like T.J. Edwards. They brought in Kaiser White. They like Davion Taylor. Where does Dean fit in, and how does who's the odd man out?
Yeah, they like their guys, but there's nobody they have that has the football acumen, the physical attributes, the tenaciousness. I mean, he's the complete package. He's not a big guy, we know that, but he can run, he can blitz, he's a playmaker. I mean, you're talking about a guy who had 2 interceptions, one of which he returned for a touchdown. You know, he's really – do you remember when the Eagles drafted Jordan Hicks? I'm not trying to make a comparison because obviously Nakobe Dean comes in with even more credentials than Jordan Hicks, but Hicks was a very high recruit at Texas, and then he had a lot of injuries at Texas, and then he had a lot of injuries in the NFL. But when he was healthy, he was a playmaker right away for the Eagles. Remember, he sacked Dak Prescott and got him hurt, I think, Tony Romo. He ended Tony Romo's career, I think. So that's what you're getting with Nakobe Dean, an undersized guy like Hicks was, but a playmaker everywhere, instinctual. If you want to blitz, you can blitz with him. You know, we've always talked about whether Gannon felt comfortable blitzing with these safeties. So now he's got a lot of wear and tear on the body, and that's why he landed in the 3rd round. So let's say the Eagles come out in season opener, right? And let's say they're playing the Titans, who are on the schedule, and the Titans come out there with Derrick Henry and a tight end, 2 tight ends. They want to run the ball. Okay, that's probably where you're going to see T.J. Edwards on the field, and maybe Kaiser White or Davion Taylor if you're in nickel still, and maybe not Nakobe Dean because he's probably not going to be your top run stuffer, and you're probably going to try to keep some bodies off of him. But there's no doubt he's a 3-down linebacker overall, and he has the ability. He's your best linebacker as long as he's healthy.
Yeah, so that's really interesting. So is Edwards out? Do they go with Dean and Taylor?
I think Edwards is a base linebacker now. Edwards is on when you need 3 linebackers on the field to stop the run. When you're in your 5-2 package and you got Hassan Reddick on the line of scrimmage and you think the other team's going to run, you have T.J. Edwards out there, and maybe it's T.J. Edwards and Nakobe Dean, or T.J. Edwards and Kaiser White. Maybe Davion Taylor, who has to stay healthy and prove himself. Obviously, there's some competition now here that's got to work itself out. But when you're in nickel and dime, Nakobe Dean's going to be out there.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I'm just, you bring White in. He was a guy that, hey, he should be, like a similar style of player to Dean, where he's in coverage. He can do a lot of things. You were like, wow, you bring this guy in. Now you bring Dean in as well. You have Taylor. That's good. That room just got an infusion of upgrade athleticism. I don't know if it's significantly better or anything like that just yet, but they're definitely more athletic.
Oh, my God. Compared to, maybe this time a few years ago when you had Nate Gary and Duke Riley, Duke Riley was a pretty good athlete, but still, Nate Gary, Duke Riley, Alex Singleton, T.J. Edwards, all, whether undrafted or undersized or, decent athletes, but not nearly the type of athlete that Dean is and Kaiser White is, and of course what you've seen from Davion Taylor as far as his ability to run is. So yes, they have injected a lot of athleticism into that position.
Okay, A.J. Brown, you include him in the draft class. I agree. You make the trade, you get him. Most people love this move. I mean, it's hard not to. He gives them legitimately a number 1 guy. Did you like all the moving parts, the trade, what you gave up, and who you got? Would you have rather just stayed at 18 and take Treylon Burks?
Well, if you stay at 18, you're probably taking a corner back there and not Treylon Burks, and then maybe you're addressing wide receiver down the road, and then maybe you hit that wide receiver then in the 2nd round. I don't know. I mean, it's hard, like you just said, it's hard not to like A.J. Brown. Now, whenever trades like this happen across the NFL, I recognize it for what it is. It's a complete upgrade for the Eagles. There's no doubt about it. I think he's going to be a big benefit, but I don't think you're doing yourself service, right, if you're not wondering why the Titans didn't just want to give him an extension. And then there was a report from Teron Davenport about what they offered him, and it was a lot less than what the going rate is now for wide receivers. So why did the Titans not value him given his production over the first 3 years is a fair question. And we'll see. I mean, it could just be that, their cap situation is different. We all know that no matter what cap situation you are, if you want to keep a player, you know how you can. There's ways to manipulate the cap to keep the player, but they chose to move on.
Well,
so that
always
make an argument too
that
something.
You can make an argument that his production was actually down, considering
it was.
They're in such a run-heavy offense that his numbers should be better in an offense. Now, you might ask, well, that's not the Eagles. Or is it now? The Eagles obviously are putting the weapons in Jalen Hurts' hands and saying, we got you enough now. So are they going to throw the ball more? I would imagine yes.
I would also imagine yes. So someone brought up to me a really good point about the type of defense that the Titans ordinarily see, which is a lot of heavy boxes, a lot of one safety deep, which allows A.J. Brown to do what he does best, which is stack a corner and then, catch a ball in that intermediary range of right in front of that safety, then turn and put the jets on. He's got a second gear on the turn and run after the catch that not a lot of wide receivers have. It's really special and unique. He can also beat guys deep and he's actually a decent contested catch wide receiver for a guy who's only 6'1" as well. He's 220 pounds. He's jacked up.
Big guy.
And he's a bulldog. Like, he's an alpha. He's going to take control of that room and have presence. And that's the Eagles have needed this for 3 years, basically. So it's a great addition. What's going to be important for the Eagles offense is two things. One, Jalen Hurts has to see his best friend, who they're like best friends. Jalen Hurts has to be able to see A.J. Brown open in the field. A.J. Brown's only 6'1", and we've seen instances in which Jalen Hurts has not seen the field very well. All right. And number two, they have to have a good enough run game, not just a normal run, whatever, just a good enough running game to get the safety to come down into the box so that they're seeing more single high safeties. That's the type of defense that A.J. Brown can rip apart. If teams can stop the Eagles or hold them in check, even if the Eagles are running well but still playing too deep against them, just like the Eagles want to do to everybody else, then it's not going to be as easy for A.J. Brown to have like great numbers, because again, he's playing alongside on an offense that has Derrick Henry, and everybody's goal is to stop Derrick Henry. So that won't be the case here with the Eagles. But no matter what, he's still an upgrade and a good addition.
Well, you got him, you got Smith. Obviously, Smith, I think this should help him out. Insurmountable help for him. Goddard, and then I guess the whole Rager situation, what happens with him and Watkins. I guess those two, if Rager's still here, battle for the slot spot, no?
Yeah, plus
and
you got Zach Pascal.
Yeah.
Zach Pascal, the teacher's pet. So that should be interesting. I imagine that the market will heat up for Jalen Reagor now the teams have gone through the draft, and we already reported teams checking in on his availability.
Mm-hmm.
So the big thing with Howie is that he's not, and you saw this with Zach Ertz, he's not always motivated to make a trade just to get a guy off the roster. Sometimes he'll hold on to a guy to try to get the best deal possible. That really didn't net him very much with Zach Ertz, as far as they got a fifth and a cornerback who's competing to make the team.
Yeah.
So we'll see what happens with Jalen Reagor.
Well, let's go there, because the rest of the draft, they got the kid Kyron Robinson from Kansas, a linebacker, a very athletic linebacker, another one.
Karan Johnson.
Johnson from Kansas. And then Grant Calcaterra, a tight end, another very interesting prospect. And then you can really make an argument that some of the undrafted guys might be just as interesting. Job, Goodrich, and obviously Carson Strong. We can get into him too. But Howie made the comment of, well, we like our safeties better than perceived than you guys do. And he went and listed all the guys. He also did that at corner as well. So what do you make of their corner and safety? Are any of the guys on the current roster going to be the guys they turn to? Because they're out on Tyrann Mathieu. He signed with the Saints.
Right. Possibly because they may not be able to get somebody else. But knowing Howie and seeing his track record, he's probably got a trade in mind. As I like to tell people, Ronald Darby, Corey Graham, Steven Nelson last year was signed in June, right? Howie always has a plan B there, and I'm sure there'll be some kind of move he makes. There's just no way, in my mind, that he goes into the season, week one, with any one of Zach McPherson or Tay Gowan or Kerry Vincent as his second corner. And I think he's going to wind up bolster. Now, safety, I don't know that he's going to be able to get anybody. I think they do like Marcus. I know they like Marcus Epps, and they re-signed Anthony Harris. They may sign someone to be like a third safety, a little veteran backup, because they're not thrilled with Kevon Wallace so far. But corner, I have a hard time believing that they're not going to make a move at some point.
So veteran corner possible. Now, they brought in a bunch of guys. I mean, they got all these guys, Gowan, Vincent, McCain, and probably other guys I'm not remembering, 2 yesterday. So there's a lot of guys that they're going to be cycling through. And then, as you mentioned, I feel like if they have to go with Epps and Harris and Wallace as like the 3 guys, they probably would be okay with that.
Yeah, that's their feeling on it. I mean, what happens if Marcus Epps, sprains an ankle and has to miss 2 weeks?
Yeah. I agree.
You got no depth.
Geoff, this time of the year, the comp picks are gone, so you can start signing guys freely. But I guess the next thing is those post-June 1st guys, and some veterans should get freed up soon.
Yeah, there should be some guys freed up soon. We went through the names on ITB. It's not like there's, especially at safety, it's not like there's a bunch of guys out there that you think is going to come in and unseat Harris or
no, but you might
Epps.
get somebody who's signed right now that ends up getting cut.
Oh yeah. There'll be some of that. Running back, yes. Like you saw Mike Davis get cut today, because that's kind of one of those positions where guys are fungible. You don't see a whole lot of like corners get cut that still have some value. That's pretty rare. So I mean, the Trey Waynes is out there, so you could sign him, but I don't know if we're going to see someone who's cut that is going to come in here and be a lot better than what they got already.
Carson Strong, intrigued?
I was, but I got to be honest with you. The reason why he wasn't available, one team I spoke to told me that, and we knew medicals was an issue with him. His knees have been repaired, and that's a big deal. One team told me they brought him in and he did not pass their physical, and the person told me that he wouldn't be surprised if that was for a lot of teams for him to go undrafted. So it's pretty evident when people scouted him that Carson Strong's lack of mobility is not being understated. Like he cannot move around the pocket, and maybe you can get away with that at Nevada, running some spread offense where you're getting rid of the ball in 1.5 to 2 seconds all the time, and you don't need to be that mobile. But in the NFL, it's very rare that a guy who can't move even a little bit is gonna have a really flourishing career in the NFL. So, but nonetheless, I mean, can he get himself into a position a year or two where he's a good backup to have? We'll see.
All right, there you go. Take a look at the Eagles weekend, and then what's next? When do they get out on the field?
I think Wednesday, Thursday for rookie camp starts this week, I believe.
Yeah, they're out. I didn't know if it was Wednesday or Thursday or later on in the week, something like that.
Yeah,
looking forward to it,
exciting.
Man. Feels good. You have football back, right? Now
It does. How about Howie? Oh yeah, Nakobe Dean's going to be starting. Like one guy reports that he's got a torn pec and he might need surgery, and Howie's like, oh no, he'll be out there on at rookie minicamp.
That whole story was wild. Like nobody else picked up on this. Like the Eagles were like, hey, what's this guy still doing here, right?
I know, it's crazy. It's funny.
They got a linebacker not in the first round, but a first-round player in the third round.
Now, how about that?
Funny how that works.
Should be really, really. I mean, it should be a really interesting kind of camp.
They keep
season.
saying, Geoff, hey, we're better today than we were at the end of last year. They're exponentially more talented. I don't know if that makes you better, but they've got an infusion of talent that when they played the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in January, they simply did not have.
Right. I always say that every single team's goal, almost every, maybe some teams tank, but is to get better, right, than they were at the end of last year. So while the Eagles are exponentially better, I think you can probably say that about, theoretically, right, about 17, 18 teams that went out this offseason, tried to sign free agents, tried to draft well, and tried to get better.
I mean, the Eagles aren't in a vacuum, but they are way better than they were in Tampa.
Well, the thing you got to like about him, Mike, is, and we've talked about this going back to last year, whenever you are strong in the trenches, offensive line and defensive line, doesn't mean you're definitely going to win a lot of games, but to me, it means you're always going to be competitive in games, and then it comes down to your coaching and your quarterback play. So in whatever order you want to put that in.
Football 4, Geoff Mosher, Inside the Birds, has plenty more on the draft. Check out their YouTube channel and their platform for all of their thoughts on the draft, and then the mini camps that start this week. We'll have that on Football at 4 all week long here on the Sports Bash. Moshe, take care, bud.
All right, Mike, take care.
All right, there's Geoff Mosher, Football at 4, and of course, Football at 4 tomorrow is back. We'll take a look at the mini camps coming up.